Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. Coming at you we're on the edge. Not the edge of glory. What's the opposite of the edge of glory? The edge of darkness, I suppose, right? But we're gonna try to be upbeat this pod. So first, let me introduce my co-host, the one and only. He has been putting in the work, as they say. The magic is still in the work. That doesn't change. This postseason, with us every step of the way, and has had a hell of a day, to say nothing of the Knicks game. So we're recording this on Sunday after the game. Jeremy Cohen, welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm exhausted, John. I am so tired. So for those of you who don't know, which would be all of you, my parents and I are staying at my grandfather's old place. And late last night, when I was going to take a shower, I turned the faucet on, and the coil that's connected to the toilet broke. It completely corroded due to inactivity, most likely, and water was everywhere, and it soaked downstairs, and it was just a nightmare. Just everything flooded. Fortunately, we're all okay. Not too much damage as well in terms of like things lost. But I was hoping for a Knicks win to kind of prop me up. But they decided to lose. The Yankees decided to let me down all weekend. Just all around fun stuff.
What do you think was flowing more freely? Speaking of flowing more freely, someone just left a surprise in my lap. The Atlanta pick and roll game, or the water coming from wherever it was coming from in the basement there? It
was 100% the water.
It was the water. Okay.
It would not stop.
Just a lot of water.
I mean, okay. Neither would the other option, but this one, when you're in the heat of the moment, it's worse.
Okay. I got you. Okay. Well, look, the Knicks are down 3-1. There are many ways that we can go about this podcast episode. Try to be all fake upbeat and positive. Everything's great. We're not going to do that shit. Embody a certain segment of Knicks Twitter, which apparently I have not had time to go on Twitter today, but from what I see from some text messages, is apparently not a very safe place. We're not doing that shit either. We're gonna try to play this one straight. So if you're looking for doom and gloom, if you're looking for all sunshine and rainbows, I'm not sure you're gonna find either here, but we are gonna try to put this thing in perspective, because I think that's, when you have a storybook season, the likes of which the Knicks have had, and I don't think there's any other way to describe their season. It's been. I mean, listen, we've said it on this podcast. You could watch sports for decades and not really have something quite like this year. When it goes so sideways and just it happens so fast, it's definitely, it could be. It's easy to kind of lose sight of where things are. So I guess that's a good place to start. I mean, I don't know if we're talking like should we talk about our confidence meter, or should we talk about our disappointment meter? I want to start with the confidence meter. I think there's still a world where this team wins this series. I don't know that I feel strongly about that. I think it's probably, I don't know if it's a 1 in 5 shot, a 1 in 10 shot, something in that range. Where do you think there's like a prayer, a snowball's chance in hell, a snowball's chance in like North Carolina in like November? Where are you at?
I mean, what I see in front of me.
Oh boy, this is not going to be good.
Sports team from Atlanta holding a very generous lead.
Oh, okay.
And the reality is that I'm not going to eulogize the Knicks when they're not dead, right? There's no point in doing that. But I think that the ability to win in Madison Square Garden and then come back to Atlanta and win a game, that's a tall task. It's really tough. I think, there just haven't been that many opportunities in the NBA where 3-1 comebacks have been around for, and there's a reason why.
Yeah.
And I think that if this team had more star power than it currently does, maybe if there were other reasons why the Knicks just flat out were not competing with Atlanta, it'd be a different situation potentially. But I'm not very optimistic about the chances, but again, I can't sit here and be like, well, the series is over and whatever. It's not. No. I'm sure that when the time comes, if the time comes, we will be talking about it in the past tense. But for now, I'm not going to do that.
That's actually a good transition. Disappointment for me is a tough word because on one hand, the part of my brain that like always knew what this team was and what this team wasn't, and also considering just how amazing the season has been and just how important this season has been for the overall state of the franchise, the perception of the franchise around the league, the perception of the franchise by the people within the franchise, the players, like all of that stuff is still there. That's not going to, they could get blown out on Wednesday. And I don't think, no, I don't think a lot of that's going to change. So like disappointment is not a word that, again, logically, I feel comfortable associating with this team at all this season, almost regardless of what's happening now, especially given the fact that, as we talked about, and people may have been mad at us for bringing it up, like the 3-0 record in the regular season really didn't mean anything. Not when you look at the Hawks and who they had and who they were being led by, for those games, and some of the circumstances, Young going out injured, the whole thing. All of that being said, it's impossible not to be disappointed down 3-1. Especially since you felt like they were going to come out today and I don't know, definitely going to win. No, it's a game on the road in the playoffs, but for it to get away from them like that, and we'll talk about maybe some of the reasons why. It's disappointing. It's disappointing.
It is disappointing. I think the biggest emotion I felt after the game was embarrassment, because this is a team where we thought that they were going to look more competitive than they did today. It was just an absolute drubbing in the second half. It was, to a degree, unwatchable, and it was just painful to have to sit through that game. At least the nice thing about Game 3 was that we knew it was essentially over before it was over. And we're here, it's like, it's only a 4-point game at halftime, and we know this is a second half team in so many ways. And then before you know it, it's like, nope, the game is just completely out of reach. And the towel is thrown in, and guys are getting super aggressive, and they're letting it get to them, and you're just kind of left befuddled. I was talking with the one and only Knicks Illustrated today, actually, and he brought up a great point. And he said that, the idea of the narrative behind playing the Hawks, I think, affects a lot of things. Because if this team were to play the Bucks, right, and go out as sad as the Heat just did, how would we be feeling? We'd say, wow, that's a team that is so good. They've got Giannis Antetokounmpo. They're a great team. But on the other hand, the Heat just got swept. We're facing a team in Atlanta that we think we're on par with, but they are ahead of schedule compared to the Knicks. And they spent more money than the Knicks did this offseason. When you look at the fact that the Knicks, of their $100 million in payroll, 80% of it is on active players. That means 20%, $20 million is dedicated to players who are not playing for the Knicks. And it just goes to show that they're at different points in their careers or their trajectories. RJ Barrett is the second option for the Knicks. Where else is he a second option?
Well, he's not a second option in these playoffs.
Right,
Derrick
of course,
Rose is obviously the first.
But the Knicks went in as well with the idea of him being a primary focus, and he can't even do that for his own team. And again, this is not to slander RJ Barrett. He's 20 years old. It's just that he and the rest of the Knicks are in a position where just everything is hitting the fan at once, and it's making everything look worse because it's all combusting at once.
That's really well said. And I the one thing I do want to clarify, I would not define their effort today or in Game 4 as embarrassing. I don't think their effort was embarrassing.
Second half, I thought it was.
Really?
I thought when everything kind of came undone at the seams, I really wasn't a fan of what was going on. So I understand the foul, I get it, but to me it just seemed like we're down and all we can really do is try to hit you in the mouth but we're also not going to have our play back up what we're feeling. Like, unless the Knicks go back to Game 5 and then win Game 6 and make it a series and have it go to Game 7, like, it just felt unnecessary. I get why they did it 100%. It was more, I'm not condemning it or condoning it in either way. It doesn't really matter to me. It's just the idea of, like, that's the best you've got. The most firepower that you seem to have is physically attacking and beating up on the other team as they punch you in the mouth by scoring on you repeatedly.
Here's what I'll say. I think they're putting it in perspective. They had a 7-point lead, the Hawks did, with under 6 minutes to go in the third quarter. From that point, it got away because the Knicks didn't hit any shots and the Hawks hit every shot, as they have been for most of the series. I guess, even though this ended up being a 25-point game at one point, I don't mind the fact that Randle had a hard foul on Gallo at the end there, and it was overt, and like he's clearly frustrated, and the whole team was frustrated, and I get all of that. But it's more like, I don't know. I feel like, yes, they were sloppy. Yes, they lost their poise. But and again, maybe it's just because I've watched too much shitty basketball in my life with a lot of teams that really just don't care. And not to mention the fact that, like, I've also watched these playoffs, right? And you get teams like the Wizards coming out against the Sixers and going down 30-14 in the first 8 minutes of the game at home, and like that's just one example that comes to my head. Like, there have been other examples where teams are just not playing any defense in some of these series. Like, even after today, the Knicks are still the sixth best defensive rating in the playoffs. And look, is that a little bit of an apologist take? Absolutely. It's more than a little bit of an apologist take, but it is accurate. Like, they're still doing what they do. It's still kind of Knicks basketball. It just got away from them today because they couldn't make a damn shot. And the Hawks hit a lot of threes, and yes, their defense was not perfect, but far from it. But I don't know. That maybe it's because that word embarrassing is like a trigger for me. That's all it is.
I get it. I mean, I did think that Julius looked pretty lackadaisical. I thought some of the passes were lazy. I thought some of the closeouts were just trash. Like, that's the sort of thing where it stood out to me where it's not like guys just didn't try. They did. It just then felt like the moment the Hawks started to accelerate, they didn't really match that intensity. And then it was too late. And it kind of felt like the second quarter of the previous game where it's just like, okay, they're gone. What are you going to do about it? You're just going to shrink even more? And sure, this is a make or miss league, right? I mean, think about how many wide open looks the Knicks have had and just it hasn't gone down. The in and outs that occurred, even to start the third quarter as well, where I was thinking, hey, maybe this is something good. Maybe the Knicks can actually rebound from this. And then the first shot goes in and out, and I'm thinking that's got to be foreshadowing in some way. And it kind of was. And then it just, I don't know. But I feel like an air ball would have honestly been more of a premonition at that point.
That's a good transition because we've mentioned a couple things, but let's actually nail this down. So the Knicks are down 3-1. They lost this game by a lot of points. What's the biggest? Let's zoom out from the game and let's focus on the series as a whole. To ask what the biggest reason is they're down 3-1, it feels like it's a different way of asking. Is the biggest reason they're down 3-1? Like, what percentage of it is Julius Randle and what percentage of it is other stuff? It's impossible to talk about this series in any other way, to me at least, than we are witnessing a star turn by Trae Young on one hand, and then we're witnessing a guy who, he's going to finish whatever he's going to finish in the MVP race, 6th, 7th, 8th, whatever it is, play like... I don't really know how to describe it. I mean, is he letting the moment get to him? Is he just, I don't know. Whatever it is, it's not good. And it's when that's been their MO the whole season. So here's what I'm going to say. I think it's like it's definitely Julius Randle's the biggest reason. However, I also look at Julius Randle and the shooting. And Julius and shooting and Julius have gone hand in hand for a while now in this season. And the fact that the shooting has also gone away Is that because of Randle? Is that part of why Randle is struggling? Like, to me, those two things go together, and then maybe we could talk about the Tibbs stuff, but like, I don't know. I think the shooting is almost up there right along with Julius. Where are you want to lay blame right now?
Well, it has to start with Julius. He is the engine that makes this team go, and when he doesn't work, the Knicks don't work as a whole. You know, I thought that today, at least certainly in the first half, I thought that Trae Young's shot selection was absolute garbage.
It was terrible.
The threes he was taking, it felt to me like he was trying to play with his food. And I was like, oh, let me see how I can just absolutely stunt on the Knicks. And it wasn't working out for him in that capacity. He figured out a way to impact the game more in the second half. Yeah. But, you know, like, and I agree, you are seeing a star be born more in a playoff mindset. But also I keep thinking, if the Knicks tinkered with their defensive strategy, if they had someone working as a point of attack defender, and you're limiting what Trae is able to do, what kind of impact is he having on the game? What are we saying about him as a whole?
How many guys could do that, though, really, in the league?
Of course, I know. Again, he's a star. Don't get me wrong. And he's going to be continuing to be that. It's just a question of, does he have this much of an impact if the Knicks basically try to react in some other way?
I think sorry, keep going.
No, it's just like Derrick Rose is not a point of attack defender.
No,
they can switch Randle onto him, and it can have
which
some
they
success.
did a lot in Game 4. Yeah,
right. But it just, you know, at a certain point, though, if they switch back, or the fact that really also pissed me off was that he had 3 fouls going into halftime, and the Knicks failed to attack in any way. Why they wouldn't pick on the weakest defender in that grouping and try to even get him out of the game because he's in foul trouble is beyond me.
So Tibbs was asked about this before the game, and you probably read the response. He basically said, we are attacking him. That was what he said. He said, we're doing it. And he mentioned some specific things. He mentioned, you know, we're putting him in pick and roll sometimes. We're rescreening, and he said whatever else he said. To me, it's very clear that they do not have the personnel to pull this off as well as they would like to. And it's going to be very interesting if the Hawks win this series, because we could be looking at a situation where Atlanta gets their doors blown off in the next series, because for as good as this matchup kind of is for the Hawks against the Knicks, is as bad as that next matchup will be against the Sixers, because they have they have a couple defenders who might be able to shut Trae Young down in Ben Simmons and Matisse Thybulle, and they also have the ability to put a bunch of guys on the floor at once who are going to be able to expose him. The Knicks are not doing that. Now, is there more? I think the real question of the series, other than like, you know, the narrative-based stuff, is there more Tibbs could have done / could be doing to get Trae Young into foul trouble? And like, maybe there is. It's not as obvious to me, I guess, is where I'm going to end up.
It's another question is, I always find it's kind of pointless to play the woulda, coulda, shoulda game, but the idea of how impactful this series is if you have Mitchell Robinson in there instead.
It's
like, again,
massive.
Right. So if that's the case, and again, he's not playing, pretty obvious that it's not going to be the case, but the ability to at least, you know, switch more, to have the Capella role and not have someone like Noel, who is just a shell of himself, who does not look healthy out there whatsoever, who is not making a huge impact. Taj obviously was wonderful, especially on the defensive end. I thought that the worst part was that the Knicks botched his best defensive contributions. And even Taj, too, I thought he forced that turnover that he created in the first quarter. He had an open Rose, and he kind of just ignored it. And then Bullock traveled when... Oh,
the Bullock travel, it kills you.
Right. And, you know, like, I get it that they're laughing it off because, like, you know, at what point, what can you do? But it's also like, guys, I'm glad you're you know, laughing it off.
Well, I think they're trying to stay calm. Right. And stay, like, because what's the alternative to laugh it off? The alternative is to be like, fucking this is getting to us, and to acknowledge the obvious, which is that the playoffs are getting to these guys.
Right. No, I understand. Again, I'm not. I think it could have either gone one way or the other. It could have been like laughing about it or just furious. It was more just.
Here's the good answer: don't fucking double triple when you're in a 2-on-1. Oh my god, it really is frustrating. I don't know. There is blame to go around. Randle has not been good. Really, nobody has been good other than Derrick Rose and Taj Gibson. Call it like it is. And, RJ had some moments on Sunday. Burks had some moments in game 1. Bullock had some moments in game 2. Everybody's had a couple of moments here and there, but no one has had a good series other than the two, old thoroughbreds, Tom Thibodeau's guys. Tibbs has not coached his best series. I don't think there's any question about that. But, at the end of the day, and this is maybe a good transition to our next thing, is like they're down 3-1. Okay. I don't think anyone's arguing that they're the more talented team in the series, right? Is that an argument? Is that a valid argument, do you think?
Not really. At least not now. I think a lot of Knicks fans saw the Hawks with a similar record and completely disregarded the fact that Lloyd Pierce was their David Fizdale in a lot of ways. And they were red hot. And, if you fire Lloyd Pierce 5 games earlier, are the Hawks 5 whole games better than the Knicks at the end of the year? Because at the beginning of the season, are we talking about them actually having a record that's comparable with the Bucks in terms of how their play is working out?
Yeah, no, and 100%. But the other thing is like, so you couple that and the fact that Bogdanović is now healthy, that pretty much everybody except Cam Reddish, might not be very good, is healthy. Losing Cam Reddish might be as important as getting Bogdanović back. How crazy is that? All of that stuff, and then you throw in Randle's struggles and you throw in the shooting struggles. Just one note on the shooting, again, as I often do. I'm stealing from Monday's newsletter. Do you realize this team, clearly they were shooting the 3 well over the last bit of the season. I don't know if people realize quite how well over the last 17 games. They were hitting 44% of their threes. The next best team over that same stretch, final 17 games of the season, which is not insignificant sample size. It's about a quarter of the season this year, 72 games. The next closest team was Portland at a little over 40%. The distance between them and Portland over that stretch of 17 games was the same distance as was between Portland and the 18th best team over that same stretch. They were literally shooting threes over the final quarter of the season in a different stratosphere of any other team. And now, for 2 straight games, the Knicks have made under 10 3-pointers. They made 9 in each game. They, over the last 27 regular season games, you know how many games they didn't hit at least 10 3-pointers?
Over the last 27 games?
27 games. So they have failed to reach that number in the last 2. Over the previous 27 regular season games, how many times did they not reach that number?
I'm going to say 3.
2. Twice. It's when you take away that and then you factor in Julius's struggles and everything we talked about with the Hawks getting healthy, getting a better coach, like the whole talent thing is like, no, they're not the most talented team. So how else could they win the series? And it's like, well, you by hook or by crook, like yes, could they be doing more? Absolutely. Should they be like up 3-1 in this series? I don't know that we could sit here and say that given what we're seeing. So then when you get some of these takes out there, a few of them are not, I don't love. Do you have a least favorite of everything? Because for me, the topic that I'm already kind of getting, I really don't want to talk about this, mindset of is the whole Julius Randle contract thing. And how 4 games is now all of a sudden a referendum on whether this guy is worthy of keeping around and trying to figure out how to build your team around over the next several years.
That is my biggest one. And okay. I talked about it on the last pod, so I don't, the idea to me is this. Basically, with Julius Randle's next contract, and I looked it up, if he were to sign for the max this summer and get that 120% off of what his contract would be for next year, which would be about $26 million, we're looking at a player who would be making the 38th most money in the NBA in 2022. Now, that's also not considering other players who are going to make more than that, like Trae Young, for example, or like a Luka Doncic. There are other guys who
all
are
of the rookie contract extension guys who are it's first day maxes,
right?
Yeah.
So what we could be talking about is Julius Randle earning closer to 40, even 45. So it's basically like this: you're telling me that if Julius Randle can play at maybe even if it's like a top 30 player, right? Let's say this year he's even a bit of an outlier and he doesn't play like a top 20 player, even top 15 player, arguably, if he's an all-NBA player. Let's say it's a little bit worse, but he's still that, quote unquote regular season player. We're still talking about a guy who is making enough money where he is outperforming his contract, where he is adding more value than what he is taking up. And this idea where it's like, well, playoffs are the only thing that matters. Who the fuck do you think got the Knicks to where they are other than Tom Thibodeau? It's Julius goddamn Randle.
Wow.
And it's this thing where you can look at Julius Randle and the stats that he is providing and the inability for him to carry this team in the playoffs right now and still say, hey, he's also responsible for a lot of the good things. You don't have to say that the good things are canceled out because, as you said, 4 games of a playoff series and like the idea that Julius Randle has no idea how to shoot in front of crowds because, the first, 6 seasons of his career, he just didn't play in front of people, right? Yeah. He was in a bubble that time too. It's absurd. It just is. And this idea where, like, you can look at Julius Randle earning $26 million and still be a second or third option in an offense. I don't think there are a lot of people who are saying Julius Randle has to be or can be your number one on a playoff team or a legitimate contender. So when you evaluate all of that, and just say like, hey, we're paying a dude to be a second or third option and to play like a second or third option, and we're going to find ways to get that alpha in the building, You sign up for that. So I just know because I've seen it a lot in my mentions because I did tweet about it, and it happened to resonate with a lot of people, and I'm glad it did. But for those who were against it, like there are people telling me that Julius Randle would be better off in China. And it's like, okay, you're going to look back at this tweet, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not the day after, but eventually, and just laugh at the idea that the most improved player in the NBA you think should go to China. It's bonkers.
So a couple of things. One, let's just call it like it is. Here's what Julius Randle isn't doing this series. Julius Randle isn't hitting tough shots. All he's taking is tough shots, and that's because on the Knicks offense, he has to take tough shots because if he doesn't take tough shots and doesn't make some tough shots, no one's going to come to double him, and then there is no more Knicks offense. Knicks offense go poof, up in smoke. He has made those tough shots all year long. He has not made as many of them in this postseason. That is undeniable. However, he's still making the right play, I would argue, most of the time, if like a significant portion of the time. I thought his game 4, again, he finished whatever he finished, 7 for 15 or 7 for 17. So the shooting line was not great. But he ended up with, he got 10 rebounds. He got his 7 assists. He had over 20 points. Like, you could see him starting to figure it out. And guess what? If you move him down the totem pole and you make him the second best player on the team, all of this stuff changes dramatically because God forbid they ever figure out a way to get some real spacing on the floor, whether it's with Obi or just some real movement shooters and give you some depth, a stretch 5 perhaps, whatever. There are different ways to do it. And you get that number 1 piece. And all of a sudden, Julius Randle isn't, and he has not been a good finisher this year. He has not been a good finisher in this postseason. I don't want to make any bones about that. But he has shown the propensity to be not a good finisher in this league, but an elite finisher in this league. So we know he could do that. We just saw him, like, it's not like we're seeing a guy become a shell of himself. We're seeing a guy struggle in tough circumstances. He has not raised his game. Trae Young has raised his game. Julius Randle is like flatlining. All of it is true. The second thing that but he's still, good. The second thing I want to say, look at where this organization has been for the last 20 years. And so here comes along this guy who bought into this coach, who worked his ass off in the summer, who embodies this family dynamic of this team as much as anyone, who is exactly the type of leader that you could have, like, what better leader could anybody have possibly imagined? And now he's going to have a bad playoff series, so you want the Knicks front office to be like, you know what? Thanks, but no thanks. We're good here. I mean, it's just very silly. It's a terrible take for anybody who has it out there. Sorry, but it's a terrible take.
Imagine going to your boss and presenting them with the worst idea imaginable and then be like, oh, they totally should make this move. Because that to me is the idea, like the idea of, well, Julius Randle can't necessarily be here long term because he's not going to be that alpha, so the Knicks should sell high on him later on, because what if this is a fluke and all these things? And it's like the guy completely overhauled his game in the offseason last year. In a year where we crushed him so much that he blocked you on Twitter, John, and other people as well. That is how bad it got for Julius Randle.
No, it was bad.
And
it was bad.
He just worked every single day and made himself better. And it's amazing to me how 4 games thus far. You know what? Let's just say the series, right? Because in the event that he has a good game, it's still going to be, well, he still had those games and it's gone.
He's still got some time to turn. He started turning it around today. I actually thought he got better as the game went on today. He looked more like himself, or again on Sunday. Yeah.
Yes. But the idea as well, where it's like, if this guy can work that hard and be the player who got the Knicks to this position where we can even talk about Knicks playoff basketball instead of us dialoguing once a week about what ping pong balls will work out and the Knicks just slide down in the draft, that to me is, you're now going to see Randle and be like, okay, great. What did I not do well in the playoffs? Oh, okay, cool. Let me work harder on that and spend my entire summer focusing on it and my energy to become a better player.
And also let the front office look at what transpired in these playoffs whenever they shall end.
Yeah, it's a learning experience.
Yeah, and be like,
we have learned so much about all of these players, the coaching staff, the front office, that we did not have 12, 15 months ago. And that is important intel that can help build this team out moving forward, because Rome wasn't built in a day.
And guess what? I don't think anybody in the Knicks front office was under any illusions about whether Randle was a number one, like that we had just not revealed himself. But yeah, after this series, we're going to look at each other and be like, okay, we answered that question. We know what he is. We know what he isn't. Let's figure out what to do from here. And hey, guess what? If there's an opportunity to move, I don't think they're going to do this, but if there's an opportunity to move Julius Randle, and it makes sense team building wise to do it, like I don't like, all we're having a conversation about is like whether or not they should pay him the contract that you just spoke about, and for all the reasons we've just said, it would be ridiculous for them not to offer him that. There are some other bad takes. I mean, the Tibbs can't coach thing is, I have been Tibbs apologist number 1 all year, so I'm probably not the most objective person to talk about this. But again, it's more like, has he had his best series? No, he hasn't had his best series. Is there things he maybe would like to take back and try differently in the whole thing? Yes. Is he, to me, the person almost as much as Randall's most responsible for turning this franchise around, more than Leon Rose, more than Wes, more than whoever you want to say? Yes. So I have a little tough time with the Tibbs can't coach thing, and then there's some other takes about that the Knicks maybe should have done more at the deadline. I don't know. Is anybody actually saying I wish the Knicks would have tanked? Again, I'm not really all over Twitter right now. Are people saying that?
I've gotten the sense that is actually.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Thoughts. It's, the idea of like, why are we going out with one playoff win when we could have had our ping pong balls closer on?
Yeah, exactly.
I do think that Tibbs got out coached, but being out coached has been out coached. I shouldn't say past tense. But that also doesn't mean that Tibbs is a worse coach than McMillan. The Bucks just swept the Heat, and I think Eric Spoelstra is a far better coach than Mike Budenholzer.
Oh, but Spoelstra is widely acknowledged as the best coach in basketball now.
Right, but he was out coached. It happens. There's more talent.
Yeah. Any other takes you want to talk about? I'm not the best person to do this because I there's a reason I don't really go and scroll Twitter as much as I used to. 2 kids does have something to do with it. I guess the only other thing I'll comment on is the Frank thing. People will, and look, I get it. Like, if Frank's not playing, there's always going to be a contingent of fans who are like, why isn't Frank playing? I think if you look at this series and you look at their offensive struggles in this series, I'm not sure that that's like, if we had a walking bucket on the bench, like if, for instance, if like Quickly had shown what he showed this year and like he wasn't playing, I'd be like, can you get in the guy who can like make stuff happen by himself? I don't get the sense that like Frank is the thing that's missing from the series. Is that do you disagree there? Or?
No, I don't disagree. It just the message that's being sent is so bizarre to me. It's like, hey, Frank, we want you in there as a defender at the end of the quarter, but we also don't trust you whatsoever in any other moment.
Yeah, no.
Again, like he's more of a defensive specialist than he is offensively. I don't think we're
no one's going to argue.
But on the other hand, like Frank did a very good job in a spot of role, and a team that can't seem to hit any 3-pointers, I figure like, hey, if you're also having trouble with Trae Young and a point of attack defense, why wouldn't you figure out a way to at least incorporate him more into the game as opposed to like giving him minutes at the end of the second end of the fourth quarters and garbage time towards the end of the fourth today?
I think if they thought that Frank could single-handedly like really give Trae problems, I think they would go to it. I don't think they think that, and if I'm being honest, I'm not sure they have a real reason to think that. I think because Frank has been such an upgrade defensively over pretty much anything we've had over the last several years, and it's really not close. There is this perception of him as like a top 5 perimeter defender in the league. He's not that. Is he a top 20 perimeter defender in the league? 15, 20, 25, something like that in that range? Yeah. Are you going to put him on Trae Young and Trae Young's like just going to go away? That's not going to happen. So
sorry.
No, I get it.
It's the message. That's the thing. It's the message you're sending in terms of what he's able to do and what he's not.
Well, also the grass is always greener, right?
Yes.
They're down 3-1, and this guy's sitting on the bench, and what does he hit this year from 3? 40-something percent or 50%? I don't know.
47, I think.
It's obscene. It's really good.
90th percentile spot up.
Yeah. No, he's been great. Hey, look. You never know what's going to happen. More series to go. Which gets us to, okay. Do they come back from this? What is the path to come back from this? How confident are we that they come back from this? I mean, we talked about our confidence levels a little bit already. Here's the path, I think, of how they come back. I think the Hawks, I feel like I've said this after a few games now. I don't think the Hawks can play any better than they have played. I don't think the Hawks can shoot much better than they've shot, especially over the last couple games. It doesn't feel like they've missed a big 3 yet in this series. Have they? Maybe game 2. I guess they probably missed a big 3 or 2 in game 2. That's about it. But they've hit a ton of them. John Collins was draining it from all over the court on Sunday, game 4. So I think the path for them is maybe Hawks miss a few more shots. And what we saw from RJ on Sunday, what we saw from Julius on Sunday is the beginning of something more. I don't think what RJ and Julius did on Sunday is going to be enough. I think Julius needs to do more. I think RJ needs to do more. And I think someone else needs to emerge. And this is the big thing for me. I think they could win game 5 and get this thing back to Atlanta if whether it's Burks or Bullock or Quickly comes about in a big way. And then, there's other stuff. I mean, we saw Tibbs go small today. He played Toppin and Randle together for a lot in the fourth quarter, whether that's because they were down so much and he just wanted, or maybe he's like, hey, listen, I may want to go to this when it's actually still a close game. I don't know. Are we going to see that? I don't know that I'm going to sit here and be like, that's the thing we need to bring us back. I just think one of their supporting players need to step up and like start making some stuff happen in a significant way, and their big guys need to come through. That's where I'm at.
Has to be. I mean, look how many wide open shots the Knicks have missed.
Oh, Jesus!
Like, to the point where you think, okay, well, it's got to correct itself, but then you're also wondering, well, what if this is the correction from the torrid shooting that you were talking about, dating back those last 17 games,
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Probably averages out to some degree. So, I mean, for me, the X factor for the Hawks is still Bogdanovich, in my opinion. Just the idea of, because when he hits at least 3 threes, I believe, as I mentioned before, the Hawks do very well as a result. And again, he's been someone who is in the right place at the right time, especially game 1 when RJ couldn't come up with the steal and Bogdanovich fell right into his lap, sunk the 3, and the rest escalated to the point it was. So
it was only a week ago.
I know. I know, and to me that might be the series turning kind of like what if, even though it was game one.
No, I thought it at the. I mean, did I actually say it? I may have said it at the time.
At the time, I said it was the RJ3 that rimmed out and Lou Will went down in the third quarter and scored. And scored again.
That hurt, but
right,
that
could have closed the door, but it didn't.
Yeah, I mean, God, how different would this feel if they were sitting here and it was 2-2, but it's not. Whatever. Okay, so we agree on that. Let's just, for argument's sake, let's say they win Game 5. Let's say they win a close Game 5, and someone else does play well besides Julius. Let's say Julius is a good game, RJ is a good game, someone else is a good game, maybe Trae Young is a bad game. Does the notion of going into games I don't know. I think they could go into Atlanta in Game 6, despite the fact that Atlanta has not has like 2 losses under Nate McMillan at home. It doesn't take much to swing momentum. They seem to be feeding off that home crowd pretty well. If gun to your, well, I guess we could finish up with predictions. Gun to your head, what do you think about this series? We have to be honest.
It's tough. Based on what the Knicks are showing, it doesn't feel like they have the juice to be able to do it. But
do you think they win Game 5?
So here's my thought process on it. We have one half of basketball where Derrick Rose and Taj Gibson are starting with one another at home. And the Knicks did well in that half. So to me, it's the idea of if you can kind of replicate that in MSG, are you able to create success from it? And if you are, Game 5 is going to be a win. But then, of course, you have to deal with the idea of Trae Young trying to close it out in Madison Square Garden, where he has really embraced the villain role. And it becomes a lot harder to do. But again, this team, I'll say this. I think that it's obviously very daunting, but this team has shown time and time again that with their backs against the wall, they're able to do some really magical stuff. Like the idea of winning 12 games in a row, for example, right? When there were several times during that streak where it felt like it was very much in peril, and it wasn't. They wound up winning, and they kept extending it. And even that game where they lost against the Suns, the first one, it was just like, okay, well, they still have a chance here. It could be a lot worse, and the Suns are a really good team, and they managed to pull together. So, I mean, of course they have a chance. They're going home where they're comfortable, where they've been better. It's just like, I really wish that today, I mean, yes, you could say that I wish Julius Randle played better today because maybe it results in a win, but even if it doesn't, right? Even if he's really good in a loss, that would have given me even more confidence. But
what about RJ? RJ wasn't really good today. I mean, he finished with 23 points on 15 shots. He started slowly. He hit 2 of 6 from 3. Had some nice buckets. A few of them were in transition, which we know that's his bread and butter. It's not like he took over the game or anything. He had a good game, Does that give you? I have a little bit more confidence with that. I think. I don't know.
I think I'm going to trust Randle more than RJ because, again, Randle's the guy that
interesting. Okay.
I don't know, something about it. I know he's having a tough series. I know that RJ is mostly thriving, or has historically this season been thriving in more of that off-ball catch-and-shoot role. But, again, if they can create better open looks, if Randle can take advantage of mismatches, I think he can find more success. Because I thought he played more aggressive, and I thought that was only a good thing. It was just a lot of there were putbacks that I thought would have been so easy that. Oh my God,
the shots he made! It feels like there's been 10 of them in this series where I know the numbers around the rim this year are not good. I get that, but it feels like he's made these shots, and he hasn't made them this series. Here, I think you know who I bet shows up. I bet Quickly shows up in a big way in Game 5. I think he feeds off the crowd perhaps more than anybody else on the team. I think if they play well in Game 5, I have confidence that this could still be a series and they could still win in 7. Here's my fear, and I probably shouldn't put this out into the open, but this is what I will say. My fear is that they start out tight and the Hawks the Hawks are going to be, that's the other part of this, right? Because the Hawks are going to go in there and be like, let's fucking have fun. If we lose by 50, we're going back home, right? I don't, think they're going to think they'll lose by 50, but like the Hawks are going to play free and easy. And that's not how you want this team to play, but they are going to be playing free and easy. They are not going to start out tight like they did today, by the way. You want to talk about how this game could have been even worse. The Hawks started out bad. They were 2 of 12 to start, or 1 for 11, from 3 to start this game. So I think the Hawks are going to be playing with house money. They're free and easy. If the Knicks start out tight, and then expend all their energy and make a comeback, because we know they're going to make a comeback, because they always make comebacks at home, especially. Do they then run out of gas in the end? That's my fear. But my hope is that they will not come out tight, that they will come out with an inspired defensive performance, especially, which I feel like we still haven't seen this series, right? Do you think the Knicks have played? They've had stretches of really solid defense. I don't get the sense that they've ever yet come out of the gate and been like, we're going to lay it I feel like Trey is kind of scaring them. Not scaring them, that's the wrong word, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
They're so
represents
cautious.
A threat.
Yes, right. Exactly. Yes, thank you. They're overly cautious, you might say.
I think Trey will basically do exactly what he did with Game 4. I think he's going to take pretty crazy shots, because to him, they're not crazy because he can hit them.
Yeah.
And it's this idea of, like, as you said, if I hit him, great. If not, cool. We go back to Atlanta because we have to fly home there anyway, even if we win the series in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
And we can just defend in front of our home crowd and win that game. And that philosophy being able to work its magic, I think, is a different story. But I will say that the Knicks won both first quarters in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Whereas they were
lucky on the game.
Sure.
3-1, yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. But nonetheless, they
were able to
succeed. The idea of them going to Madison Square Garden with that same starting 5, the same way that they were able to do it, I think that could work. I think it could work for them. But it's the crowd. It's tough. If they feed off the energy, that's one thing. But also if they just bunch up even more because they want to please the home crowd, and they, fans weren't really in the stands for such a long time, and they just want to deliver something for them. I can see the pressure mounting.
I think it's really going to come down to like those first couple of Randle kicks to threes, or maybe it's Randle taking the 3 himself. Do they go down? I think that's going to be the key. I think guys like Bullock, RJ saw it go through the hoop a few times, but guys like Bullock, Burks seems to be confident, but he just hasn't really played well. Quickly, I think they got to see the ball go through the basket. And that sounds very cliche and trite and the whole thing, but that's really what I think it's going to come down to. I don't know. I don't think the series is over yet. This does not have the feel to me of a series that is over. It's a massively uphill climb. All right. Are we going to predict the score here?
Sure.
I've been wrong every time, I think. So, what good am I? Did either of us come what I guess who had the larger margin of victory?
Well, I know I've been saying they've been lower scoring games than they have, or that they've been close. I've been closer in terms of the margin.
Okay.
The total points.
So then
you might have been closer in the margin.
So you want to pick the score?
Sure. I'm going to go with 108-104 Hawks.
Wow, you think the Hawks are going to win?
The reason I'm doing it is because I've said the Knicks have won the last 2 games, and that has not happened. So it is my attempt to. I said mush the mush last time, so I'm going to say mush the mush the mush.
I don't. That's a lot of mush.
It's a lot of mush.
I don't know. I think they could come out tight. I really do think the Hawks are going to play free and easy. I don't know. Knicks 102, Hawks 101. That's the best I got.
Andrew, you want? Is that a buzzer beater?
No, I don't think it's a buzzer beater. I think it might be a defensive possession where they win the game on a defensive possession.
I really don't want to watch that game, 102-101. I'd love for a blowout either side.
I would not. I don't want the season to end in a blowout loss. I really don't want that season to end.
At least you then can point to they were better. They're a year ahead. I get what you're saying, but
it's fine.
It's funny. You've said that you don't think the series is over, and you've also highlighted how in control of the series the Hawks have been pretty much since the beginning.
Yes. I just keep going back to the shooting thing. I just can't get over that we've shot it so poorly. And I go back to every as I've referenced, every time this team's backs have been against the wall, they come out and they come back in a significant way. All of those have had to do with their shooting. They have made runs based on their threes. They hit threes at the right time.
It's how they won game 2. Yeah.
Yes, and it's how they won all of their big games this season because they come through with big shots. And even when they weren't really a really great three-point shooting team, they showed the propensity to be that in small bursts. I
think that the idea of the Knicks winning 2 games in the playoffs versus 1 game, look, there are going to be some fans who just think it had to be a playoff series, and this is deflating nonetheless. But I think there's something to be said like, wow, this was a great season, but the Knicks only won 1 game versus the Hawks versus like, oh, they had a fighter's chance. And sent the game back to Atlanta. Yeah, it wasn't what we wanted, but they were actually able to show some fight because I think that's, when you see a blowout and it's this demoralizing, you think like, well, this is what it was all for. Why? That goes back to that narrative of
it's a stupid fucking narrative.
It is, of course it is.
And again, we haven't done it yet. At some point, we will sit back and we will be like, wait, this team won how many games this year? And they were what seed? And they got home court. This team that was the laughingstock of professional sports 16 months ago. Christ,
6 months ago. The off season. How many people are making fun of how little they spent? Yeah,
fine, but how long ago was the Mills Perry presser? That was November.
It's
November 10th, 2019.
Yeah. Jesus, okay. Jeremy. Great. So we're in May. We're 18 months removed from that, and that was just like, remember how that season was, and just how. Oh my God. And we're sitting here and we're bitching about a team that may not be able to push it to 6 games in a first round playoff series. Again, we will at some point we will be able to sit back and properly take that in and reflect on it. That is not right now though. So whatever. Well, let's finish. Andrew, anything else before we finish up?
Do you want a mini producer's corner where I ask you guys all the teams that have come back from 3-1 in the NBA?
Like to name them?
Well, yeah. How many can you name?
Name one.
I could name. How many are there?
There's 13. There's been, let's see.
There's only 13?
In NBA history. It's 13 in NBA history. Now,
are you sure?
2. I'm looking right at it, John.
Oh, wow.
Are you sure?
Okay. I mean, I could name some.
Okay. So name some.
Well, Warriors, Cavs, obviously.
Obviously. The big one.
Pistons, Magic, the Billups, Tracy McGrady team.
That was a 1-8 too. That was the first year that the NBA switched in the first round.
First to 7,
from best of 5 to best of 7. So the Magic would have won that series had they not switched the format.
Don't ask me to name the year, but there was a Rockets Suns one in the mid-90s.
That's the Elijah one year where they won the championship as the 6th seed. And they came back in round 2 against the Suns, and they came back from 3-1. 2 of the games were on the road, too, which made it even more impressive. Games 5 and Game 7. So that's 3.
There was a Suns-Mavs series in the mid-2000s. Nash, Nowitzki, something there? No?
Nope.
Was it there was definitely either Nowitzki, Duncan, or Nash was involved with Suns, Mavs, Spurs in a 3-1 comeback.
So you're thinking of the Spurs against the Mavericks, the 2006 conference semis, where the Spurs came back and forced a Game 7, but the Mavericks won in overtime.
Okay. So let me take another easy one. Knicks Heat in 97, obviously.
The suspensions.
That might actually be...
There's 2 you're missing, that are pretty significant and are recent.
2 recent and significant?
Yes. So you mentioned the Cavs coming back against the Warriors. The
Warriors coming back against the Thunder.
Against the OKC. Game 6 Clay.
Yeah, Game 6 Clay.
Jeremy, I'm surprised. Jeremy, do you have any?
My big one was Cavs Warriors.
Okay.
Is there a Celtics one?
There's one. There is a Celtics one. It's in the 80s, though.
I was about to say it's a long time ago. Yeah.
The Celtics came back from 3-1 against the Sixers in the 81 Eastern Conference Finals.
Is there a Suns one from the 70s?
There is. They blew one to the Lakers in 1970. And the Suns then, I'll just give you this one, as a 2 seed against the 7-seeded Lakers in 2006. The Suns came back from 3-1.
I forget that.
The Kobe game winner in Game 4. The Suns came back from 3-1.
It was Kobe. How could I forget that? That was a good one. And you said there's another recent one that's obvious.
So you know how big of a Chris Paul fan I am. In 2015, the Clippers were up 3-1 against Houston. Yeah, I think we've named all of them.
No, I don't think we named 13, but that's a bunch of them.
But we named most of them. The only two big ones that are recent that you missed, the Nuggets did it twice last year in the bubble.
That's right.
Oh my God, I completely forgot about both of them.
Yeah.
You know why? You see, but that's funny because the reason why my initial reaction was, oh my God, there was only 13 was because I think it subconsciously, like last year, it like happened twice and like we just, we didn't even bat an eyelash.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was a big deal. Yeah, okay. Well, listen, it could happen. It could happen. All right, on that note, anything else, Andrew?
No, apologies for my Wi-Fi, everybody. Jeremy tried to mush the mush. I apparently have a bit going on Twitter where a legitimate reverse jinx is happening. So if you want to use that as hope, before the series, I said Hawks in 6. There's your reverse jinx. Everything I've said is wrong. So the Knicks are coming back. Well, I just won't say anything else that could potentially also be reverse jinx.
No, please don't.
Hawks in 6. We'll see how it works.
Jeremy?
I hope we can keep talking about games. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So that's all. Leave it at that.
That's all I want. I want to keep talking about games. I don't want it to end yet. But we will roll with it as we always do. Everybody out there, thanks for checking out another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. We will be back with you with another one before you know it, as always, because we got nothing better to do. All right. See everybody later, and adios.